Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Maria Cozette Show, where the left brain meets the right. I have a lovely guest today, influential and strong female leader, highly accomplished attorney and fashionista, Tina Odjaghian. So stay tuned for that. And of course, for any further information about the show, visit mariacozette.com. Stay with us. I have a lovely guest today. She's an influential and strong female leader, accomplished attorney and fashionista, Tina Odjaghian. Hello.
Hi there. How are you, Maria?
I'm wonderful. It is so nice to have you here. We have a lot to talk about. So first and foremost, let's talk about your educational and professional background as an attorney.
Sure. Thanks for having me, for starters.
My pleasure.
So I'm an attorney specializing in brain injury litigation. I do catastrophic injuries. Most of my clients have been hurt really badly on the job. They're usually fallen off heights or been in big explosions, but they're traumatically brain injured for the most part. So those are the folks I represent.
Nice. And so interestingly enough, because the whole premise of this show is where the left brain meets the right, you, again, as you said, you specialize in clients that suffer from traumatic brain injury. And although you're not a physician, you do serve on UCLA's neurosurgery department board. And so you have an abundance of clinical knowledge. I want to know what you have found the role of creativity being in as far as the therapeutic needs are concerned of TBI clients.
Well, I mean, I think there's ample research out there that says, you know, any kind of music therapy, art therapy is really, really beneficial for anyone who's been through something traumatic in their life, and obviously traumatic brain injury being the most traumatic of them, right? So there's plenty of evidence to support that. But the way that I see that in the day-to-day handling of my clients' cases is they sustain their traumatic brain injury, then they have like a period of really intensive rehab. So it'll be like 2 or 3 years of neuro rehab consisting of, you know, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. But once that's done, because you can't have them in therapy indefinitely, there are studies that say that, you know, after a certain amount of time it no longer works, then you have to come up with something that's going to help them maintain, right? Keep them from regressing and keep them safe and hopeful, because a lot of them end up having depression secondary to their traumatic brain injury. And in those instances, you know, therapy, art therapy, recreational therapy is extremely instrumental. And so the way that I see it is recreational therapy, like they'll do outdoor adventures, you know, deep sea fishing with the right gear, obviously, or, you know, or whale watching, or, you know, just whatever to get them out of the house, get them doing something fun and exciting and keeping them hopeful and keeping them out of trouble, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now let's talk fashion.
Okay.
Because that's why you're here. And whoever knows you knows that you are always dressed to the nines. And aside from that, it's become, you know, a hobby for you and a creative outlet. And so let's talk about, who are your favorite designers, first and foremost?
Well, you know, I'm an equal opportunity purchaser, and I don't discriminate, but I do tend to gravitate towards the French designers. You know, I love all European designers, but I love Chanel and Dior, and you know, Saint Laurent if I'm feeling a little edgy. But generally, I like the classic designers, because their stuff is timeless and it's a timeless expression of how you feel, and it really is. You know, I don't know who it was that said, but couture is the most amazing form of art, because you spend most of your life in it. Like if you wear it, you know what I mean. So you don't hang it on the wall; you actually get to wear it and feel it. And you know, but Chanel's probably my favorite designer, and the reason for that is, you know, my mom wore it when I was growing up, so I'm sure there's an element of nostalgia there. But his stuff, well, I say his, he passed away this year, unfortunately, but the design house's pieces are all classic, and so I can pull something out of my closet that my mom wore 30 years ago, and it would still look beautiful.
Absolutely,
or, you know. And I love that. I'm not really much into fads and trends. I really like classic pieces.
Yeah, because you're a classic woman. And so you mentioned your closet. Now I must know, what does your closet look like?
My closet is entirely too small for my collection. No, I'm being silly, but you know, it's curated. You know, just like any collection, all of my pieces have sentimental value, and you know, I've collected them throughout the decades, and I love it. You know, there are times when, you know, I've had a really rough day at work, and as silly as this sounds, you know, I go home and obviously my kids and my family cheer me up, but, you know, I just need to get in my closet, put on some clothes, put on some shoes, and kind of cheer myself up and change my mood around. I really enjoy fashion and styling.
Yeah, and I've always said I feel like an outfit or an article of clothing is not necessarily just that, because it becomes you. You feel a certain way when you wear a certain something. And so with that said, what do you, how do you feel, I should say, are your thoughts on dress to impress, that phrase?
You know, I have mixed feelings about that phrase. I guess I would agree with it only in the very narrow realm of, professionalism and climbing the corporate ladder, maybe in the context of appropriateness in that regard. But other than that, I really feel like you should dress according to your mood and be authentic to yourself, because if you feel comfortable in what you're wearing, if you feel confident, if you feel like you look good, I feel like, you exude a certain level of confidence and everybody else picks up on that. Whereas, if you're wearing something because you're dressed to impress, either somebody else or you're trying to mimic something you've seen, I think that comes off as really disingenuous and falls flat oftentimes. So if you're just starting in your profession, yes, and you're in the mood for, some lime green shorts, I would probably say, elect against that.
Yeah.
But so within the realm of appropriateness, I think that, I'm a bigger proponent of dress according to your mood, dress according to, what you feel, what you like, or, what you feel like best represents who you are.
Right. And so I want to ask you what your take is on today's fashion and how the young girls, as a female leader yourself, how the young girls dress, who they, emulate as far as fashion is concerned, who they follow. I mean, there are so many different people telling them what to do. And, fashion is very much a large facet of pop culture, a representation. Sure. No matter what we think about it, it's not a pretentious thing. It very much is a representation of who you are in the public's eye. So what are your thoughts on, the direction in which young girls are going with their fashion and who they admire and what they're doing, what they're wearing?
Wow, that's a tough one. There are a lot of people in pop culture who represent themselves beautifully, and they'd be, perfect to draw inspiration from. And there are others that, not so much. Less fashion, more so the craze with, altering the way you look at a very young age. I find that more troubling than anything else. I'm seeing a lot of, 16, 17-year-olds getting, fillers and injections and, butt implant. I mean, just like insane stuff. And I really, when I see that, I'm really glad that I don't have daughters, because that would really concern me. But as far as, who to follow, I think it's great to draw inspiration from what you see, but then you have to kind of make it your own,
Yeah.
And fashion, like all other aspects of your life, change, as you go through the years and you go through experiences. So, what I thought was cool 20 years ago is not something that I would feel that way about or look good in the same way now. So it evolves as you do. So I don't really see a problem with them drawing inspiration from pop culture, so long as they're authentic to who they are, remain within the realm of appropriateness. And I say that because a lot of them, if they have job interviews and so on and so forth, or, if they're showing up to a new job, or if they're showing up to school, it's good to have some gauge of appropriateness and some goal in mind of what you're trying to get across and what you're trying to convey. But it's a dichotomy, because you also have to be true to yourself, as opposed to try to emulate something that you're not, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, like I said, a dichotomy, and it's hard. I feel like there's so much pressure on kids nowadays because of social media. You and I, me more than you, didn't have that growing up, and I really feel for them,
Yeah,
Those are your most formidable years, where you're trying to find yourself, and I just feel like social media can be brutal.
It really can, yeah. And it could send the wrong message across.
Absolutely.
And yeah, it is very much how you want to be seen, because as I said, no matter what we think of it, first impressions are everything. How people see you when they don't know your character or personality is what they're going to think of you. And then also, as far as being sexy, I mean, you look absolutely sexy right now, but you're covered from head to toe. But some girls have it's a common misconception where they have to be completely open to be sexy. So yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Be true to yourself. And follow good people like Tina. Let's talk about how you have incredible representation of females on your team. And I want to know, what key characteristics have you found in female attorneys or leaders that set them apart?
Well, I have to tell you that I'm an equal opportunity interviewer, and it just so happened that every time we had a position available, an attorney position available, out of the candidate pool, the most qualified were the female candidates, and so without regard for their sex or sexual orientation,
right,
we went with them. But I think that what sets them apart is the fact that as a female, you have to work doubly hard to be taken seriously in many professions, and ours is no exception to that. Even though law schools are graduating 55% women or more, I think these days, there is a huge discrepancy between the earnings of female attorneys and their male counterparts and the number of women trying cases in a courtroom versus their male counterpart. It's really unfortunate. So I am a big proponent of female empowerment, and it just so happens that my all-star team consists of all women, and they're amazing. And one of them, in fact, Anna, I'm going to give Anna a plug, moved to the United States just over a decade ago, and she learned the language from scratch, and she graduated valedictorian of her class at Southwestern, and I was just really, really impressed by her. So I think, walking into a courtroom and being mistaken for the court reporter, the interpreter, it definitely
disheartening.
It's disheartening, but at the same time, there's something to be said for being underestimated. It's actually a great tool, but you definitely feel like you need to be more prepared, more on top of your game,
right,
and bring your A game every time. And that's certainly what I found with the female candidate.
Yeah, and I love that. Really, I do. And I'm not just saying it because you're here, because I say this a lot and I bring you up as an example, especially because my doctoral study, the entire research is on gender inequity and leadership. So yes, you are all about female empowerment. You're very much unapologetic and yourself on social media. And you're a great role model to females. And so I love that this team that you've created, whether it was intentional or not, is mostly comprised of females. And yeah, amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk about your recent nonprofit and charitable venture.
Oh, absolutely. So I just started a brain injury organization, and I've served in an advisory capacity at a lot of nonprofit boards in the brain injury community, like Cozette Hospital and now UCLA Neurosurgery, and I just feel like there's a real lack of resources and education for a lot of the med legal professionals, like the attorneys and attorneys and physicians that are servicing this community. That really are charged with the responsibility of servicing this community. And so I really wanted to put together something with an all-star cast of trial lawyers and doctors that have dedicated their practice to this kind of, to the community, and they've really honed their skills to sort of impart a little bit of their knowledge and their pearls of wisdom to the rest of the trial lawyer community, to the rest of the medical community, to help kind of raise the bar industry-wide. And so it's been a huge undertaking, but we've been very fortunate because our partners that have joined with us in this venture have been amazing, and really there's a wealth of knowledge in that every time we get together for like a planning meeting, I learn something new. And so I'm really excited about it. We're having our first conference at the Biltmore in downtown LA on the weekend of October 3rd. And so that should be really a huge med legal conference. Anyone in the legal medical profession who's interested in learning more about traumatic brain injuries, that's the place to be.
So where can people find out more about the organization?
So it's called Brain Society of California, Brain SoCal. You can find it online. There's a bunch of information on there, just about our mission statement and what it is we do, our board of governors, who's involved, and most importantly, the conference coming up in October.
Perfect. And so the last question I ask all my guests is, why do you think it's important to have a creative outlet, exercise both sides of the brain as a multifaceted professional?
So I am more of a right brain person, whatever that means. I've always been more of a performing arts kid. I've never been great at the sciences, which is why I wound up in law school. I went because of the creative component of it, of putting together, creative arguments and advocating on behalf of people. But in all seriousness, I represent folks who are really, really badly injured, right? And I like to pride myself on being the silver lining in their, traumatic story and their traumatic brain injury. But as much as I love that and as rewarding as it is, it can be sort of a heavy burden to bear day in and day out. And, it's a lot of stress to have someone else's life in your hands and their future in your hands. And so I find that for me, it's really important to have me time and have a creative outlet and have something that I look forward to and make time for myself and have fun, just to kind of help me keep my sanity and help me be a better mom and a better professional and a better attorney to my clients. And, I found that fashion is one of those outlets for me that helps lift me up. And so if that means I have to go shopping at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of trial, then that's what I do.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on, Tina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Stay tuned for more of the Maria. Know the Greats, where we spotlight a legend. Audrey Hepburn was a British actress, model, dancer, and humanitarian. Recognized as a film and fashion icon, Hepburn was active during Hollywood's golden age. There are some things about this icon that many people don't know. Her envied slender figure was the result of being malnourished during adolescence, as her family, among millions of others, were deprived food by the Nazis during World War II. During her screen test for Roman Holiday, she recalled performing ballet for audiences that were afraid to applaud because they didn't want the Nazis to catch them. She donated the money she earned from her recitals to the resistance, and like many other Dutch children, she occasionally acted as a courier, delivering papers and money from one group of resistance workers to another. Hepburn rose to stardom from landing the leading role in Roman Holiday, for which she was the first actress to win an Oscar, Golden Globe, and BAFTA award for a single performance. She went on to star in many films, including the iconic Breakfast at Tiffany's. But as her life went on, she devoted most of her time to working with UNICEF. Her first field mission was to Ethiopia in 1988. In recognition of her extensive philanthropic work, Hepburn was awarded numerous medals of honor. At the age of 63, she lost her life to cancer, and the world lost a legend. One of my favorite quotes ever is by Audrey Hepburn. "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible." This is Checkup with Dr. Bastian, where we talk about health-related issues and get great medical advice from Glendale-based orthopedic surgeon Dr. Bastian. Nearly 54 million Americans suffer from this. The topic is arthritis. What is arthritis, and what are the different forms that are often debilitating?
So I get asked this every day, and I see it all the time. Arthritis affects all races, all genders. It's universal. Surprised it's as low as 54 million, actually. It's essentially when your joints get worn out. And what are joints? Joints are when two bones come together and you get movement at that area. That's called a joint. And at the end of the bone is a smooth lining called cartilage that allows for a frictionless motion, nice smooth motion. So arthritis is when that cartilage starts wearing out and you're left with the bone underneath. And then you get bone-on-bone contact, and that causes a lot of pain, a lot of friction with motion, and stiffness. So arthritis is essentially a fancy way of saying your joint's worn out and you have some pain and stiffness.
And then what are the symptoms we should look out for? Any tests or screenings that can detect the onset of arthritis?
So not all joint pain is automatically arthritis. Arthritis affects people at different ages, and even the same person can have different joints affected at different times. The most common affected joints are the knees, the hips, and some of the joints in the fingers, such as the DIP joint, PIP joint, but the joints in the fingers, and sometimes the base of the thumb. I see it a lot in the shoulder as well, and it can essentially affect any joint. Any joint that has movement and cartilage can fall victim to arthritis. Signs and symptoms early on may be pain and stiffness. It's good to get a checkup with an orthopedic surgeon or anyone really that can maybe get an x-ray and get a good exam. You want to compare it to the other side. So when you start seeing a little decrease in motion, a little stiffness, a little pain, you want to start trying to address that early on so that you can help slow down its progress. Unfortunately, it's a progressive disease, so our goal is to try to slow down its progression.
Right, and what are suggested treatments?
The best mainstay of treatment is physical therapy, exercise, diet, lose weight, especially for the lower extremity joints like your hip and knees and your ankles. We always recommend that. That's always good, not just for your joints, but it's great for your cardiovascular health, your lungs, and general well-being. Like I said last episode, you want to have a good life and long life, not just a long life. So these are ways to help improve your function, get you to a lesser pain level, and to enjoy the things you like to do.
Right. And so as young adults, should we have strong family history, what are some things that we can do to prevent it?
So fortunately, it doesn't affect many people that are super young. Sometimes we see it as early as late 30s, early 40s, but that's very rare. It's usually from a secondary form of arthritis, which is either from a trauma that happened at the joint or some sort of family genetic component, like you said, sometimes rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis. These are all buzzwords for a secondary form of arthritis, as in arthritis caused by something else.
Right.
Generally, it's osteoarthritis or primary osteoarthritis, and that's when you just get wear and tear, and everybody's joints wear out at different times. It's like having the same tire, 4 tires in the same car, you drive it the same way, and yet one tire runs out of air quicker than the other. We don't know why. There's a genetic component, an overuse component, micro trauma, injury component. We don't know. But once we kind of go down that path, there's no going back. Unfortunately, there's no going back. So we just manage the symptoms, try to slow down its progression, and help with the pain and the stiffness until it comes time to change that tire.
I see. Nice analogy. I like that. So now it's time to debunk the myth. We take a moment to debunk some popular myths. So today's myth is, if you crack your hands or back, you will shake when you get older. Is this a myth or truth, Dr. Bastian?
100% myth, Maria. Anybody who cracks their knuckles, their back, that's totally fine. Some people just make a crack. Just don't pull your finger out of your hand when you do it, because that can happen, and it's had happened before. But cracking your joints doesn't lead to any kind of wear and tear of the joint. Some people's joints just crack. That's okay.
So that's about it.
That's about it. It's
so
as
you're
simple as that.
debunking it.
It's debunked.
It's debunked.
It's official, guys.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for checking in, Dr. Bastian.
You got it.
Stay with us for more of the Maria Cozette Show. The Art of Giving, where we spotlight a nonprofit organization. Every child has the right to grow up in a safe and inclusive environment. UNICEF works with partners around the world to promote policies and expand access to services that protect all children. Their initiatives include gender equality, social inclusion, environment and climate change, communication for development, children uprooted, children with disabilities, adolescent development, and child protection. UNICEF works in over 190 countries and territories and in the world's toughest places to reach the children and young people in greatest need. The organization combines its experience and well-collected evidence and analysis to create programs, campaigns, and initiatives. For more info, please visit unicef.org. That's a wrap for the Maria Cozette Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Much love to my guest today, Tina Odjaghian. And of course, many thanks to Dr. Bastian for checking in. You can see Checkup with Dr. Bastian once a month as we talk about a different health-related topic. And of course, for any further information about the show, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. That's about it, guys. Remember to stay creative. Thank you.